My name is Julia, and I'm 59 years old. I live alone in a small house that feels emptier with each passing day. My husband passed away 8 years ago, leaving me with memories and silence. I have one son, Matthew, who moved to America many years ago. He built a life there with his wife and 2 children, a big house and a successful career. Meanwhile, I wake up each morning to clean, cook for myself, and sit alone as evening falls. Matthew rarely calls, though sometimes he sends money and promises to visit soon. Those visits never come, but I keep waiting because he's my son and I love him. His childhood photographs line my room, and I look at them every single day, remembering when he was mine. One afternoon, someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, Matthew stood there smiling. I couldn't believe my eyes. Tears filled them as I hugged him tightly, overwhelmed that he'd actually come. We sat together over tea, and I asked about his wife Holly and the children. Everything was fine, he said. Then he told me why he'd come. He was worried about me living alone at my age and wanted to take me to America. At first, I hesitated. This house held my entire life, my marriage, my memories of his father. But Matthew insisted it was unsafe for an old woman to live alone in such an old house. In America, I'd have my own room, see my grandchildren daily, and Holly wanted me there too. That night, I couldn't sleep, wrestling with the decision. I didn't want to leave, but Matthew was my only son. The next morning, he suggested selling the house since I wouldn't need it anymore. I could use the money for my new life with them. When he smiled at me, I thought perhaps he truly did love me. So I agreed. I sold my house, and Matthew took all the money. I packed my belongings and we headed to the airport together. Despite my sadness about leaving, happiness flickered inside me because I'd finally be with my son. At the airport, Matthew told me to wait while he got a wheelchair since the walk to the gate was too long for me. He promised to return in 5 minutes. I sat down and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 30, then 40. My heart began to race as I scanned every face passing by, searching for him. I told myself he couldn't have left me. He was my son. An hour went by before a police officer noticed me sitting alone and approached. I explained that my son had gone to get a wheelchair and we were flying to America together. I showed him Matthew's photo and my ticket. The officer asked me to wait and went to check inside. When he returned, his face was heavy with sadness. He sat beside me and told me the truth. Matthew had already boarded the plane. He'd gone through the gate alone, without any wheelchair, and the flight had already taken off. The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't speak or cry at first, just sat frozen in disbelief. This couldn't be true. Matthew loved me. I'd sold my house and given him everything. The officer had witnessed it all, seen my son abandon me at the airport. Finally, the tears came, pouring out with my broken heart. The officer's eyes grew wet as he watched me cry. He introduced himself as Paul White and told me his own mother had died 5 years ago. When he looked at me, he saw her. He couldn't leave me sitting there alone where I might get sick. He invited me to his home where his wife Eleanor would take care of me. I protested, not wanting to be a burden, but Paul insisted it wasn't trouble. It was love. He called Eleanor, and she immediately agreed to welcome me. That night in their home, Eleanor brought me food and spoke to me with such kindness. Alone in the room they'd given me, I cried for Matthew, for my lost house, for everything. These people were strangers, yet they offered me more love than my own son had. The next morning, Paul received a phone call that made his expression turn grave. He spoke quietly in another room, then returned and assured me everything was fine, though I could see pain in his eyes. What I didn't know then was that Matthew's flight had crashed. There were no survivors. My son was gone. But Paul chose not to tell me because he understood that despite everything Matthew had done, I still loved him and prayed for him. Paul brought me new clothes and slippers. Through my tears, I told him he didn't need to do so much, but he said he wanted to. He'd lost his mother and couldn't give her everything he'd wished, but now he felt he had a second chance. Days turned into weeks as I stayed with Paul and Eleanor. He took me to doctors, bought my medicine, and gave me the care and time my own son never had. His wife treated me with respect and warmth. Their house became my home. Their family became mine. My life had transformed in ways I never expected. I prayed for Matthew's soul and for the children he'd left behind. I prayed that no other mother would ever feel what I felt at that airport, waiting for a son who would never return. When Paul once asked if I ever thought about going back to my old house, I looked at him and said I'd lost that house but found a real home here. Matthew was gone, but I'd gained the son I truly deserved, and for that I felt grateful. Sometimes the family we need isn't the one we're born with, but the one that chooses to love us when we need it most.